Today we're going to talk about a freestanding freezer. This is a 20 cubic feet freezer, and I want to show you all the tricks I do inside the freezer to save me money on groceries. If you're just meeting me, my name is Amy Cross, and this is the Cross Legacy, where I teach you how to buy groceries that are affordable and reduce your food waste. So if you don't know, the average family is throwing away 40 to 60% of the food that they're buying. And when you really think about how many berry containers you're throwing away, leftovers that are going bad, and things that are getting freezer burnt or forgotten about in your freezer, you can really see where that number adds up. In our grocery course, I talk about how I spend $135 per person per month on groceries, which is lower than the family average of what you spend on groceries. And mostly it's because I'm buying single ingredient items that I'm making things for my family, but I also meal prep so I don't have to cook all of the time. So when you do see the inside of my freezer, do know that I have used that same grocery budget, whether there has been 2 or 3 or 4 or however many in our house over the years, and I have never strayed from that budget, but we still have food security in our home. So when you see my full freezer, just remember that I have stuck to our grocery budget over the years. So I do believe in having food security in our house, and inflation has changed a little bit of how I buy things. I still try to buy the best items that I can for what's in the budget, but I have noticed organizing the freezer that I don't have the extra stock of butter and bacon like I used to keep on hand all of the time. Those are things at the grocery store that I'm not able to buy extra of and stay in the budget. So I know that we have shown previous videos of me having a big tub of bacon. That is one way that we have realized that inflation has affected the cost of those items. Are you ready? Here's the freezer. So it might start beeping and then we'll close it, but it's a great thing that it has an alarm on it. I know that if it's ever left open, it will start beeping when it starts getting warmer, but it might cause problems today. But here I have some of our meal prepped items in super cubes. I love these that I can portion out things as I go, and I know what's in the containers here in the freezer. And then I talk about this often, but I normally have a pizza basket, and I have mozzarella cheese, different toppings that we keep. There's like pepperoni in there. Normally there's Canadian bacon. I have some chopped up different like veggies that go on pizzas. And there's actually even some store-bought dough in there, but I do have a dough recipe. But I keep all the things that we would need for a Friday night pizza right there. And then this is some more of our meal prepped items. I do store things in glass. I have dropped them on the cement garage floor before and we've been okay, but just be careful. There's different items here. So like this one, I know that we have sloppy joes, but we don't have any hamburger buns right now. So when I'm going through my freezer, I also have my journal handy so I can be writing notes at the same time. So I have sloppy joes and no hamburger buns, but that would be a perfect dinner. And then I have different like spaghetti sauces and homemade meatballs here. This container is kind of things that Mike grabs, so that way he's not looking for things. So I have cream cheese and bagels, and then he likes these frozen burritos. So those are in this container. He knows exactly where they are. And then I have some more like frozen meals prepped right here. These are some frozen enchiladas. So when I made enchiladas, I just made some extra, and I have a whole nother dinner's worth in there. And then I have some shrimp. So we are in the winter time now and we don't eat shrimp as often. So I have this right at eye level so I don't forget to use these up soon. I want to talk about 2 things that I try not to buy very much anymore. And that is things wrapped in styrofoam like this. If you put anything styrofoam with the plastic wrap, it's only going to last in the freezer about 3 months before it gets freezer burned. And then you don't really want to use it because it will taste bad. So I try not to do this. If I am buying something in styrofoam, I try to either put it in a freezer safe bag or use it quicker. And then these big bags of chicken, we're just not going through them quick enough anymore with it just being the 2 of us home. So I have started buying them like this from Costco, we do use this amount of chicken at a time and it's not getting freezer burn. So when I am at the grocery store, I am trying to buy things that are vacuum sealed. These will last much longer and it's worth, even if it's a little bit extra of a cost to get it vacuum sealed. So you can see a lot of the items on the shelf are all vacuum sealed, and this is where I was joking about the bacon buffer. I'm down to 1 package of bacon, and this whole shelf used to be bacon at one time. So it really does show how inflation has affected the way that I have grocery shopped. But this item here has mostly like pork items in it, and they're mostly single type items in this container right here. So I know if I'm looking for something like sausage or kielbasa, it is, or bacon, it is right here in this area of the freezer. And then you'll see all over the freezer, I have these acrylic bins. That is what I find works best for me because I'm very visual and I like to be able to look straight into the freezer and see what I have. You can find, like at the dollar store and different container stores, ones that fit in there nicely, but a lot of times they're colored or solid surface and you can't see what's in that bin. So this is like all single pork items, like right here. Here I have the chicken, so when I'm going to go grocery shopping, I can just look right here and know if I'm low on chicken or I'm not. And then once every 18 months, we get half of a beef. And this is what's left. Right now, we're 14 months in the process, so that's how much is still left until the next time we get our next shipment in. So it does save us a lot of money to be able to set that aside every month into a savings account and know that we can buy beef for around 18 months to 2 years at a time. So down here at the very bottom in that basket is where I keep all the ground beef. So I know when I go to get ground beef, it's right there all together. And then this basket here has chuck roasts, and then these are like single cut different items. So I know if I'm looking for something specific like a London broil, it's probably right here. And then I did have this whole door full of soup bones. I have been making broth. If you're looking at how to make beef broth or chicken broth, we just posted those videos. So normally I have a bunch of packages of soup bones right here on the door. I do have whole chickens in the door right now. You notice I have them down at the lowest part of the freezer. If we had a power outage, the lower part of your freezer stays the coldest the longest. And then I'm just going to close the door for a second so it doesn't start beeping. So we always make a habit of making sure the green light is on. There's a green light on the floor here. So whenever we go to bed, we always are double checking the light on our freezer to make sure that that is on. It's just an extra safety thing. I always teach everybody in the family when they close the door to make sure that they push it, that it actually closed all the way. And then we will link a couple of the different alarms in the description if you're looking for an alarm for your freezer also. But this is one of my favorite things to do. This is a frozen glass of water. At the top here is a coin. And so after I freeze the water in the little jar, I have a coin at the top, and it shows me if we ever have a power outage and we lose power for a while, that coin will sink down into the water and then refreeze. This shows me how defrosted any items in the freezer would have gotten during the power outage. It's really important that you never open your freezer during a power outage, and try to wait at least 24 hours after the power outage to open your freezer again. We do have a generator, so we make sure that we run it for a span of 3 hours with the freezer plugged in every 12 hours for the entire power outage. I have this in my freezer downstairs and my freezer upstairs in the kitchen, so I can tell all the time any of the defrost levels. The items up here, these are actually peppers, are flash frozen on a tray. So I teach about that a lot, telling you to flash freeze something on a tray, and then you can put them in a bag and they will move all around in the bag, so you can pick out exactly what you want instead of freezing them all together and they end up being like one big ice block together. So if you have time and room in your freezer that you can flash freeze something when you're freezing it, like produce, it will make it easier to be able to use the whole items. And I do have some like onions here that I have frozen in a jar. I'm going to have to probably defrost this and put this whole thing of onions into my Instapot at the same time. And then we'll just talk about freezing in glass here. I do freeze in glass, and I try to use wide mouth jars whenever I'm freezing in glass, but I always put it in the refrigerator overnight before I put it in the freezer. You fill it 3/4 of the way up, leaving at least 1 inch of headspace, and then put the lid on. And I normally keep my jars in my door here so they don't knock over. This one is beef stock that I had left over, and you see this is a regular mouth jar. You see how much headspace I gave it. I left about 2 inches of headspace at the top of this so it didn't crack as it was expanding. With the wider shoulder on the regular mouth jar, it's more prone to breaking in the freezer. So I try to use wide mouth jars most of the time, but this one was a regular one. Something else that I normally keep right here are the items that I know I need to use the soonest if they're like small containers. So these are chopped chicken items that I want to make sure that I end up using before I have a bunch of chopped turkey that I need to use up. So I'm going to be making like chicken noodle soup or chicken pot pie with these items that are right here, eye level. I know I want to use them soon. And I do want to clarify, the things in your door could defrost sooner if somebody left the door open. And so that way, just make sure that one, you're teaching your family to make sure that door is closed all the time. But sometimes it's better to put some of those items in the door that you wouldn't care if they thawed out a little bit quicker. Something that we've noticed since being a smaller family now, and even when we had one family member that was home with gluten allergies, is we're not going through bread as quickly. So we don't normally bring out the whole loaf at a time. And especially with things like the gyros, we might use 2 or 4 at a time. And so I will grab out just what we need for that meal and not the whole package that's going to expire or get moldy if I take it out of the freezer. So it's just one of the ways that we make sure that we're using all of our things, but not having them upstairs in our kitchen expiring. When I'm getting cheese, I normally get block cheese and shred my own. So if you're getting medium cheddar cheese, it like defrosts and thaws really well, so you can make it into slices. Sharp cheddar cheese doesn't like to be frozen. It gets crumbly afterwards, but you could still use that as shredded cheese. But when I'm shredding my cheese, then I put it in a glass jar in the refrigerator and it will stay fresh double the amount of time as a processed shredded cheese bag would last. To do a normal grocery shopping trip, I am checking the inventory of my freezer, my fridge, and my pantry before I go grocery shopping. So in our grocery planners, it has this great little spot where it says what I already have in the freezer. And sometimes, like you saw, I have Sloppy Joe mix, but I don't have the hamburger buns to go with it. So that would be a great time for me to write down that I have Sloppy Joes, and then on my grocery shopping list to write the hamburger buns. I also, 2 times a year, I do a complete inventory of everything I have in my freezers. I normally do this right before school starts and then again in the spring. I'm trying to double check the things in here that I won't use during that next season. And I'm trying to use up those items and rotate them out. It seems like seasonally we have different types of meals, and I want to make sure that we have all the ingredients on hand to be able to make the meals that we like to have. For my inventory, I will also keep track of that in my grocery planner, so I always know what I have on hand at home, and then that makes it easier to grocery shop, or if I'm finding a new recipe, to know what I have in the freezer or the pantry. If you enjoyed this video and would like to learn about fridge organization, that will be the next played video on this playlist. And also make sure you're checking out the descriptions, because we will put all the important information there.